Hi, I'm Kevin, and this is HFX by Bike, a YouTube channel all about finding your way around Halifax by bike. Almost all the videos I post are going to be infrastructure reviews or longer trips around the city, but occasionally I will put out videos that are a bit more geared towards commentary. That's what this video is going to be. I thought an intro video was overdue, and so I'll get that out of the way too. Earlier this year, I saw a video of the hosts of Shifter and Not Just Bikes making straightforward commutes by bike in their respective cities. One was in Edmonton, Alberta, and one in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Each did their respective commute and noted the positives and negatives they encountered along the way. As you can probably tell from my route reviews, I think this is a fun way to subjectively evaluate what works and what doesn't when getting around. But my biggest takeaway from the videos wasn't the point system, it was that commuting by bike doesn't have to be a white-knuckle experience. It can just be a commute, a trip from point A to point B that happens to be on a bike rather than from inside of a car. I had never biked in an urban environment before and mostly just assumed that the handful of my friends that did were nuts. But even in the Edmonton video, biking in protected bike lanes seemed doable. And we have a few of those around here. So I started to wonder how hard it would be to get around Halifax by bike. I plotted out the city's bike infrastructure network. It was, and still is, incomplete and poorly connected, but I thought I could make it work. So I gave it a try. I bought a bike, planned out some trips, and went for a few test rides. One of the first things I realized when I started biking is that a lot more planning goes into it than just about any other way to get around town. Most of the people who might be inclined to commute by bike face a major barrier. Motor vehicle traffic is dangerous for people on bikes and intimidates people away from even trying. Honestly, they're not wrong, but this is where the planning comes in. It is possible to get around the city by chaining together the bike infrastructure along major routes, as well as by taking quieter paths with less car traffic. It isn't always direct, but it is doable. Using roads supported by bike infrastructure in the form of painted bike lanes, protected bike lanes, and multi-use paths will almost always be the fastest, most direct way of getting to where you're going. When that isn't available, you can look for alternate paths that mirror the busier roads that you're not comfortable biking on. In Halifax, the city's trails and parks will do a lot of heavy lifting in this regard. The other popular choice is to pick one of the handful of local street bikeways that's most relevant to your destination. Local street bikeways are local streets that have had speed bumps and wider shoulders installed to promote slower speeds by motorists. Some even discourage or outright prevent the use of the street as a throughfare for cars at all, diverting them instead towards adjacent streets. The net effect of these changes is that the streets become much less prone to having high levels of traffic, and whatever traffic is present is usually traveling at a similar speed to someone on a bike, which makes them much less of a hazard. Pairing these kinds of parallel routes together can allow bike commuters to mimic a lot of major roadways around the city. This is really helpful, but it does have one major drawback that I'll try to demonstrate in a side-by-side comparison. I'll take a short trip from my place on Quinpool to Turbo Chicken just down the street. On the left, you can see me biking directly down Quinpool, a busy arterial road. On the right, you can see me use the Allen Oak Local Street Bikeway that runs just one block north of Quinpool. I'm not keeping score or doing the usual heads-up display, but you can already see that I'm completely surrounded by traffic on Quinpool. In some ways, this is actually the best version of biking on Quinpool. The cars are just as stuck in traffic as I am. In contrast, I haven't seen very much traffic on Allen Oak at all. but I also haven't made much progress. The point of this exercise isn't to besmirch the good name of the Allen Oak Bikeway, or local street bikeways in general. I use Allen Oak 4 or 5 times a week to get around. The point was to highlight, in the small scale, the choice that bike commuters face in getting around the city, and which I've alluded to in previous videos. Often, getting around town by bike means choosing between a commute that's safe and comfortable versus one that's convenient and practical. On the small scale, each of these detours can seem like a great trade-off, a mostly car-free road in exchange for a few minutes of extra travel time. But when this scales up to longer trips across town, you often find yourself taking highly circuitous routes around the city just to avoid car traffic. This often makes commutes inefficient and impractical. So, although I love local street bikeways and quiet side streets in general, the most practical way to improve the experience of people commuting by bike in the city is to layer protection along major roadways. Build the bike lanes. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the chicken.